everybody, welcome to Boardrooms, Babies and Bubbly. I am your host, Mot Ehuma. In this episode, we talk about the importance of being courageous enough to speak up, the importance of being bold enough to advocate for self, especially in the workplace. I had such a heartwarming conversation today with a colleague of mine who's become a dear friend and someone that I really, really admire. And she said to me, Mott, one of the things I admire about you and have learned from you is your ability to authentically speak up. Your ability to not be afraid to share your point of view or your ideas. And as she was saying this, I was filled with a deep sense of gratitude that I grew up in a household in which my parents really encouraged my sister and I to speak up. We were encouraged to share our ideas. We were encouraged to respectfully challenge. And as a result of that, I think it instilled with me a bit of confidence to be able to also speak up in the workplace. I have to admit that sometimes when I do speak up, I have to speak up with even though my voice is shaking, right? And as I was thinking, or rather reflecting on this conversation, it made me think of something that Meghan Markle said in a panel discussion once. She said something along the lines of, women don't need to find their voice. They have a voice. Rather, they need to be empowered to use their voice, and people need to be encouraged to listen. And yeah, I find that so powerful. And it had me thinking about the role that we need to play as leaders in our organizations. We need to be so mindful and intentional about creating an environment within our teams that people feel that they can speak up. People feel that they can share their ideas and that their views and perspectives are welcome and respected. As leaders, I think we also need to make sure that we are encouraging our teams, again, to listen, to be open to different points of views, right? And the reason why I value that so much is I've seen how empowering it can be when a leader shows up or is intentional about this. I remember a time when I was just starting off in my leadership journey and being on a team or environment where I was the only female a lot of the time. And I really had to dig deep to make sure that I wasn't overcome by imposter syndrome and that I could share my point of view and contribute meaningfully to the conversations and to the work, right? And the one day in this meeting, it was actually a conference call with actually quite a senior leader who had a reputation of not always showing up in the best way, right? I think his style was one in which he, I think, abused his power. He would intimidate people, he would be patronizing, and just instilled a sense of fear. If I'm quite frank, I actually think he's what we would call like a corporate bully, right? So I remember in this call, was a heated debate, a discussion, which is normal and encouraged, I think. And he just started saying things that were a bit inappropriate. At the time, it actually felt like very personal attacks at attacks on me. And I just remember, like, I'd gotten so tired of having to endure this person's inappropriate behavior, and I almost had this out of body experience, right? I just remember reaching over the table and just moving the microphone closer to me just to make sure that he could hear what I was saying on this conference call. And I remember just saying to him that I found what he had just said to be quite inappropriate, and that going forward, if he was not able to engage in a professional, respectful way, then I would most certainly have to escalate this, right? And as I shared this, was like this awkward silence on the call in the room that I was in. And obviously the senior leader wanted them to kind of backtrack and kind of was like, no, you misinterpreted what it is that I said or meant. At some point he was like, no, it's a language barrier, which definitely wasn't. But I remember walking out of that conversation, feeling relieved that I had kind of stood up for myself and I had called out this bad behavior. And I remember calling my manager at the time to be like, oh my goodness, you won't believe what just happened, in this meeting. This is what he said. It was inappropriate. I felt like I had to speak up, and I was going on and on and on. And then my manager at the time just said to me on the phone, Mots, good for you. You did the right thing and I support you. And if he calls me, I'm also going to call him out on his bad behavior. And I think just hearing that from my manager at the time not only made me feel empowered, but made me feel that going forward, I had the platform to speak up and just show up as my most authentic self, right? And that's why it's so important that, if you're a leader or a manager, you are intentional about creating these safe spaces where your team feels empowered to speak up, where your team feel that their views and perspectives are valued, even though they may be different. And I guess for those of you that are listening, who might be thinking, oh my goodness, I actually work in an environment where I can't speak up or I'm afraid to, I think what I would say is try to find the courage to speak up, right? There's always a saying, as I said earlier, speak up even though your voice is shaking, and that's okay, but speak up. So that is what I wanted to share with you today, and I hope that it inspires or sparks something within you. And I still remember when I started working, I had this fantastic boss who always used to say, it's important that you speak up. When you speak up, remember to be bold, be brief, be out, or be brief, be bright, be out. So I'll leave you with that. And if you found this episode inspiring, please go ahead and comment, like, and make sure that you subscribe to Boardrooms, Babies, and Bubbly. Chat soon.